We are working on a hand transplant today, and we actually have a doctor in who does this for a living, and she's phenomenal and amazing, and so she's actually doing some of the sutures that will be my character, which is lovely. I love that. Makes me look really good. It's a chick doing it. It's like a woman power kind of thing.
In your back pocket or on your ankle?
Back pocket, please. Often we feed our wires all the way through to the ankle because we're moving so much and it gets stuck in our clothes and all that kind of stuff. So that's it. Very exciting. What is her strength, which is her pragmatic side, her logical side, everything, all the belief in science, all those kinds of things have gotten her to the point that she is in her career, and she's very, very good at what she does. And so as far as her success rate, and as far as that goes, that's been a strength, but yet it also kind of ends up being a weakness for her, because in her dealing with Charlie, she doesn't know basically how to cope, and she's relying a lot on the Western medicine and a lot on her logic and what textbooks say, and she's starting to have to actually question that for herself. And as the series goes along, you start to see her using, kind of adopting different ideas, and is there a mystical realm out there, and is he out there, and all those kind of questions I think that we would all ask ourselves on another level.
I'm still getting to know the ins and outs of the character as we do more and more episodes, but I'm really enjoying his sardonic sense of humor, which is something that helps him get through this little journey he's on. And I'm also enjoying other little subtle aspects of it, especially associated with the journey he's on. The fact that he's an atheist and he's entered a spiritual part of the world, so to speak, is a lot of fun to toy with as well.
Here they are in love. They're stuck in basically two different universes or parallels, and they're both dealing with this kind of tumultuous experience, and they're both lonely, and they're both trying to figure out how do they get their way back to each other. And I think there's a lot of relatability with what she's going through, because there's not one of us that hasn't been touched by some point of tragedy in our lives, and how do you continue going on? And I think that's probably the cruelest thing that anybody would say, is that time keeps going. And so when her world is falling apart, when Alex's world is falling apart, time keeps marching on. And so how is she balancing that, and how is she coping with keeping those two worlds going? And you start to see in certain episodes how she's falling apart, and work is falling apart, and her personal life is falling apart, and so I think that there's a lot of things that people could relate to in that. And
Alex is the love of his life. Alex is, the yin to his yang in a lot of different ways, and they have a shared interest in their profession, but there's also a role that each other fits in. She's someone who is very strong when it comes to her job, and very assertive in that position, but emotionally is probably in need of a little bit more of a shoulder to lean on, and he provides that, and she provides the levity and the laughter that is necessary for his life that's probably been lacking for a long time. Yeah, that's the best way to put it, is that she's the love of his life.
I'm a much more apt person to believe in the spiritual side of things, and what is out there. I'll be the one that believes in the energy and what's out there in the universe, and that there are people on the other side. I'll buy into that right away. Whereas the character that I'm playing, of course, Alex, it doesn't work for her. That's not how she thinks at all.
The interesting thing about Charlie's position now in life is that because he's able to roam around the hospital sort of being unseen, and he's able to be an observer, and given his medical background and his understanding of everything that's going on in the hospital, he's able to tie together all the different stories and allow the viewer access to the insider information about what's happening and why these people are behaving this way, and why doctors think a certain way, and why certain people can be saved, why certain people can't.
The backstory of Alex and Charlie, now this is the funny thing, is as I go into each episode, they give me a new nugget. So we do these little flashback scenes every episode to give the audience a glimpse into the kind of relationship they had. And I think the beauty of the relationship she had with Charlie is he is the opposite of her. He is optimistic. He believes in other things that are out there. He is calm and quiet and safe, and he's kind of her safety is the way I think of it, that wonderful love that you find. I mean, there's all different kinds of love in your life, but I believe that for Alex, Charlie is that balancing factor, the one that really kind of is the best. You know, they say love what's best for you, and I think that that's what he is for her.
When they're on their way to get married, they take a taxi cab after many delays along the way, and end up getting into an accident. That Charlie hammers his head on the door, but manages to get out, and they manage to help out the cab driver as well as the driver of the other vehicle before he realizes that his head injury is a little more serious than he thought, and he has a bit of a stroke, and ends up in a coma.
The relationship Alex has with Joel is the direct opposite of the one that she has with Charlie, and it's they've known each other a very long time, and they had a relationship in the past that was very tumultuous, and it's that kind of crazy, passionate relationship that isn't always what's best for you, but you somehow are addicted to it. And then over time, I think what ends up happening, of course, they end up breaking up, and it's a really terrible breakup, and then he ends up showing up. Of course, in the pilot episode, you see him, which is kind of exactly what his character is, like a cowboy flying in to save the day, and big hot shot, and she's like, okay, great, now this person's back in the hospital, and is he trying to fill Charlie's shoes? And so you see all of that kind of interplay going on.
Anytime we get to do a flashback and Charlie gets to be in bed with Alex, that's a lot of fun. I don't know why, it just is. Call me crazy.
And that's what I think is so great about the Joel and Charlie relationships for Alex, because it really does showcase that there's many different kinds of love that you have in your life and many different kinds of relationships. Charlie becomes a bit of a tourist in the in-between realm, and that's the space between life and death, and the sort of the corridor or the passageway for which people will enter temporarily by being in a coma or being temporarily dead, or when they're on their way to the afterlife, wherever that's going to be. And so he becomes this sort of, I won't say gatekeeper, because that sounds like he's got his hand on it, but he becomes sort of like a person to talk to, a little company to keep along the way. And he then discovers things about the afterlife as well, so he's able to provide some insight into what he sees in that. As a doctor, she knows all the timelines of, for example, they address the issue, once you're in a coma for a certain amount of time, then you're in a vegetative state. And, so the whole side of her that's a doctor is saying, we're losing hope, we're losing hope, we're losing hope. But the other side in her heart is saying, I can't give up yet. I have to try something different. And so she's starting to try different therapeutic remedies and coma arousal therapy and all these different things that are out there that people do try to bring people back. And so she's faced with that, and she's also probably going to end up being faced with the dilemma of, is he gone, and do I need to say goodbye to him? It's not just the fact that it's a medical drama, it's a medical drama with ghosts. So a prime example would be, of course, you have all the wonderful dialogue and all the really intense emotional scenes, and then and we shoot on average 6 to 8 scenes a day. So I'll be doing the emotional stuff with Charlie in the morning, then heading off to do something in the OR, which is all feels like doing a play, because it's all staged and it's all new and unfamiliar, and you have all of the medical jargon, and you have the consults and the doctors in, and so you're doing all this stuff, and you're supposed to be proficient at it, and that's the key.